Good afternoon. It's never too easy to moderate a session just after lunch, but since the session is on gold, I hope all of you will be bright and awake, wanting to listen and imbibe whatever we are going to say here. So the focus of this Agri Summit is women in rural economy. And two of the assets that most women in rural economy have is gold and maybe land and property. Of course, a lot of problems with holding land, as we heard in the previous sessions. According to a research by Morgan Stanley, Indian households hold about 34,600 tons of gold with them. And we are sure that most of it, or a large chunk of it, will be with rural India as well. And it's also true that gold has been on a very sharp, dizzying run over the last couple of years. In 1 year, it's up about 84%, as we all know. In 1964, when your grandfather and grandmothers would be buying gold, 10 grams of 24 carat gold was priced at rupees 63. Would you imagine? And now, 10 grams of 24 carat gold will come at about 1,65,000. Okay, and if you're going to buy 22 carat gold, you could get it about 1,45,000. But if you want to buy even 1 gram of gold, you have to now shell about 14,000 to 15,000 rupees. So it's really become really expensive. And the topic of this discussion is beyond the reach of Aadmi. But I'd like to raise a question, is it really beyond the reach of Aadmi? But before we do that, I'd like to know what women in rural India think about this dizzying price rise and what they are doing about it. So in the last session, panel discussion, we had Miss Aruna Didi. Can we have a mic with Aruna Didi, please? Is it okay? दीदी या हम आपसे पूछना चाहेंगे कि सोने का भाव जो है बहुत ही ऊपर चला गया है अभी या 10 ग्राम का गोल्ड अभी आपको 1,50,000 के पास लगभग आता है, तो आपके गांव में जो महिलाएं हैं वो अभी क्या कर रही हैं उसके बारे में, मतलब सोना खरीदना चाह रही हैं कि उनको क्या लगता है, उनका क्या प्रॉब्लम्स फेस कर रही हैं अभी?
हमारा गांव का दीदी लोग का सोना नहीं खरीद पाएंगे हम लोग, जो बेटियों का शादी करना पड़ेगा वो लोग तो बोलेगा वो हमारा पास ज़्यादा रुपया नहीं है, हम लोग कैसे सोना खरीद लेंगे।
लेकिन फिर भी वो खरीद रही हैं, उनको लगता है कि और ऊपर जाएगा, हमको खरीदना चाहिए, ऐसा सोचते हैं कुछ लोग? नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं। अच्छा, नहीं, आपके पास जो सोना होगा जो आपको शादी में मिला होगा, क्या आपको पता है कि उसका जो भाव है अभी बहुत ही ऊपर है, कि आपका जो पूंजी है, आपका जो बचत है वो बहुत ऊपर चला गया, ये आपको पता है?
हाँ।
आपको पता है कि आपके पास आपका धन काफ़ी बढ़ गया है क्योंकि सोने का भाव बढ़ गया है?
हाँ। तो
आपने ये सोचा कि उसको गिरवी रख के कुछ लोन लिया जाए, कुछ पैसा लिया जाए, उसको वापस खेती में डालें, ऐसा आप लोगों ने कुछ सोचा?
अभी भी नहीं सोचा।
अभी तक नहीं सोचा।
हाँ, सोना के दाम में इतना ऊंचा में गए हैं, हम लोग तो कैसे सोना खरीदेंगे, कैसे ये करेंगे, हम लोग तो नहीं समझ पाए
अभी सोचा
भी नहीं है।
ओके, थैंक यू दीदी। Okay, so coming to our panel, so I think one question that all of us here would like to know is the gold prices have been going up quite a bit. Everyone would want to know, is this rally going to sustain? What do you think? Will the price continue going up? And this is a question I'll throw to all the panelists. You can give me some brief answers. So I'll start with you, Tarun. What do you think? Will prices keep going higher?
So you have to look at gold as an asset class in perspective of what drives the value of gold. Gold's value is it's not a cash flow generating asset to start with. So the value of gold is basis belief of a certain sect of individuals or a group of people. The recent rally that you've seen is, to my mind, driven with the changing economic world order, whereby the central banks have been have played a key role in ramping up their gold reserves, led by at the back of de-dollarization as a global trend. I don't see that changing anytime soon. With the geopolitical situations that we see currently, I doubt that trend is going to reverse. To give you a little perspective on that, and most the other panelists here will concur there, to look at an economy like China, which currently holds only about 4 to 5% of their total forex reserves in the form of gold, a slight change or an increase in that holding has the potential to drive the gold price further up. So I don't see that trend ebbing anytime soon.
Okay, Jateen, what about you? What do you think? Will the rally continue?
I would like to start with a famous quote from Mr. Warren Buffett. See, the gold that we dig is then melted and then safeguarded. All right. So the safeguarding part is now a little bit modified. It is like the central banks are allocating the gold, they are safeguarding it, but they are also stabilizing it on the means of portfolio allocations. See, the portfolios are now a larger part and larger, awareness where the gold part has played its part in the portfolios. See, there are mediums which are running the portfolios with ETFs, with respect to ETFs. We have the central banks, allocating a lot of gold into their portfolios right now. So the yields are not that much of a, quite on the predictable side. That is a main reason, I think. And uncertainty word, which has been, carrying around since last few years. That is why this gold return is still looking quite, positive going ahead. The geopolitical tensions are there since like 5 to 6 years now. I think 2021 was the year where it all started, these geopolitical tensions. Then it, kept on escalating to other countries and everything from Russia, Ukraine to Middle East, and then now US, Iran. So these all things are still looking quite onto the supportive side for the gold rally. And I think gold is here to stay, and the rally is here to stay. The volatility is definitely going to be there, but that volatility is going to give us an opportunity to enter it, because gold is not in a one-way stream, so it is a little bit volatile, and that volatility, I think it is an opportunity for entering it.
Thank you so much. Kavita, your thoughts?
So just to add to what they have said also is we have the central bank demand, okay, and in the last year what we have seen is there has been tremendous investor interest which is there. Okay, so the investment demand, kind of offset to a large extent the decline in jewelry demand, which was to be expected given the price increase. And even with this increase, gold is strategically under-owned. Okay, you might find that surprising, but in Western economies, it's still under-owned. Even as a percentage of your total portfolios, what would go in terms of your debt and equity, gold would be around 2%. It used to be 8% in 1980s, and slowly this percentage is increasing. And now you are seeing that, there are some strategic allocations also which we are going to be seeing. China has permitted its insurance companies to invest into gold. Okay, so that is going to be a huge area for demand. India too has permitted its pension funds to take exposure into gold. And in fact, just yesterday, SEBI came up with a new set of rules saying that, certain equity funds which are there can, have allocation into gold, which is over and above the equity allocations. So everybody is rising to the importance of having a diversified portfolio, one that behaves differently. Not all diversifiers behave as expected, especially during periods of stress. And gold has proven to behave differently when it's most required. Yes, so we too are quite positive on gold, because these conditions which have been driving it are unlikely to see a reversal soon.
That's good to hear. All three concur that the rally is going to continue. It's good for all of us, I'm sure. Let me begin with you, Tarun, because gold has this duality that when prices go up, when gold prices go up, the gold consumption, jewelry consumption comes down. That is what is usually seen. So since you are in that business, so what are you seeing? Is there actually a fall in the jewelry consumption itself?
So let me answer it a little differently and sort of give you a little perspective on how we are seeing our business evolve. Quantities sold as a business and as an industry at large, we've all seen a little dip. But it has been more than compensated by the value rise. So from a volume from a value perspective, the industry, and in our business in particular and in industry in general, hasn't seen that dip. How, so if you were to look at it, a large part of our jewelry consumption happens around the weddings. A bride essentially still wants to be a bride. There are aspirations not from the bride, but her family, parents, the whole community wants, and gold is, culturally we are married to gold. It's not, it's a part of our all important religious and social functions. So a demand ebb, I don't see it in general. In quantity terms, it will be recalibrated to fit the price points. Now the onus of doing that lies on the business and on the industry of how are you able to give the consumer value for what they are spending. If it has an impact on the quantity that is sold, perhaps, but I think from a value perspective, I don't see a decline.
But the volumes are coming down, you're saying?
The quantity sold, perhaps, yes. In jewelry, quantities sold, because see, all of us have budgets which are not necessarily denominated in quantities that you're looking at spending. We all have budgets which are price driven. Now, if 1 lakh rupee was getting me 10 grams of gold today, now my budget, I may inflate it to, let's say, 120, but it'll still not get me 10 grams of gold and I'm able to buy only 8. Now the job for me as a jeweler would be to see how can I use that 8 grams and give you the maximum look and feel of what you're expecting it to be.
So are you seeing more of recycled gold being sold? I mean,
so that's actually a good thing that we are seeing from an India perspective, because that puts the burden on our imports a little lower, and our industry and our government has been trying to monetize the gold that the households have been sitting on and bring it back into circulation, and that this is actually a positive trend that we are seeing it as an industry. I think what we've seen over the last few years is almost, as a percentage of total sales, almost 30 to 40% of what we are selling, we're getting back in terms of gold. So that reduces the burden on imports by that much quantity. So that's actually a positive trend for the country.
So Jateen, I'd like to ask your views. So it's actually the investment demand from gold exchange traded funds and other funds that have been actually driving the prices higher. What is your view on the investment demand in gold? Do you think that's going to continue? And also the portfolio allocation, now we're hearing a lot of investment banks like Bridgewater Associates and JP Morgan, they're all saying increase your portfolio allocation in gold. So what is your view on that?
See, first and foremost, definitely yes, the investment cycle has to continue. The investment cycle of gold is, earlier when the gold was rallying, it was on back of jewelry kind of a demand cycle, where the gold was not looked at as a portfolio or a hedge based or a very strong portfolio based, which you should be including it in your other asset classes comparisonly. So theme has recently changed from the years of, I think, 2019, since US-China trade war started, and then suddenly we saw a spurt of rise into the gold prices by 20-30% in that financial year, and then so on, then COVID, and then the geopolitical issues that we have seen. So these all things have relatively changed the scenarios of looking at gold, at how they should be allocating it, not just the means of for jewelry demand, but for the portfolio allocation as well. Now, these cyclical changes are definitely helping the gold prices to stay elevated. The other metals are also performing in that sense, because not only gold, since gold is getting expensive, the other metals are also performing. So that is the purpose where the gold is still looking relatively an asset class which is going to give you a stronger percentage of returns year-on-year basis compared to the other classes. See, since last 5 to 6 years, we've already seen like 300-400% of jump already into the prices. And comparing it to the other asset classes, whether it be cryptos or equities, see, there is a very vast differentiate right now. Maybe sometime down the line there will be a midden where these things will merge. The overall actual portfolio will be get balanced. But right now, still the allocation is gold in the favor. And coming to the second part, where the portfolio allocation, how it should be and what should be the overall scenario for an individual or a large institution or corporates. See, rule says that at least 10% has to be there in the portfolio, but times have changed. Since only allocating a 10% would not even give you a yield of 20-30% of overall portfolio jump. So minimum I would say 20-25% allocation has to be there, depending upon what your portfolio risk is at. If you are heavily invested in some funds or portfolio where it is very directly related to the equity markets, and you are on daily basis you are seeing that portfolio jumps ups and downs. So portfolio allocation in gold has to be relatively higher, towards 25-30% as well. But if it is balanced with debt and other asset classes, then it can be around about 15-20% as well. But so basic idea is that it has to be 15% at least on any portfolio basis analysis that you're doing, and it can go up to 25-30 as well.
So if everyone increases the allocation to 15-20, I think that will keep the prices higher by itself, right?
I think that has been the case where allocation has increased, and that is where the prices have started to increase more in the last few years.
Exactly.
I think the central banks are following suit to what he's saying. They're also sort of increasing their allocation in their portfolio of the total reserves. So that trend is more generalized.
Yeah, so Kavita, I'd like you to tell us about the demand supply in India itself for gold, and how much of gold demand in India actually comes from the rural economy in India. We have the numbers because you are with WGC and you are the repository of all the numbers and data about gold.
Yeah. So what is interesting is that gold demand overall has been quite resilient, okay, as gold demand has been fairly resilient, okay, as my fellow panelists mentioned, that, the spending on gold has increased. That said, there is a slight shift in the product mix, okay. Jewelry demand in terms of volume has come down, okay, and at the same time, your investment demand, be it physical or gold-backed financial products, has seen an increase. So just to put some numbers here, in 2025, jewelry demand for India was 430 tons, okay, which was a 12% increase in value terms. And investment demand was around, for physical bars and coins, was 280 tons, which was a 17% increase year on year. And if you're adding your ETFs, which saw 37 tons last year, which was a record high, you are seeing that there is the decline which is there in jewelry is being kind of offset with what is the increase in demand in investment. So this is the shift which we have been seeing. Now, there is a shift also when it comes to the consumption between urban and rural areas, okay. Till about 5 years ago, rural consumption was higher than that of urban consumption. So the share would have been, say, a 60-40. Now that has reversed in the last 5 years. So I'm talking about, we had commissioned a study to understand what has been the shift. So from 2021 to 2025, we have seen this reversal which has happened. So now one of the reasons is that you have more exposure to banking and financial products in rural areas. Then of course the price, both these are factors, okay. And when it comes to urban centers, you have little more flexibility when it comes to the budgets, when it comes to, buying. And rural economy, most of the rural buying is mostly restricted to wedding related buying. And that too, when you're buying jewelry, you go with a fixed budget. And it's whatever you will get in that fixed budget is what you will buy. And given that the prices have risen by over 80%, automatically, what you will get is lower. Whereas when it's for investment products, usually we'll say, I want a 5-gram coin or a 10-gram coin, or, I will, that way it's how it works. So yes, you're seeing this shift. But also a lot of these rural buyers come to urban areas to buy their jewelry, because there are these chain stores which have, really proliferated all over the place. So, what we have understood is nearly 15 to 20% of the demand which these chain stores in these urban areas have come from rural areas. So, yeah, so there is this shift which is happening.
I'd have so to what Kavita is saying, that it's interesting thing to note here, that how banking has changed the rural demand for gold. So if you go back in a few years, maybe 2 decades, 3 decades, gold is essentially not luxury in our country. It is an alternate saving mechanism. Penetration of jewelry trade is perhaps more than any banking system that exists in our country. So it has, for all these years, has worked as a parallel banking system within the structure of our society. If a rural client did not have access to bank for savings, he would go to a local jeweler, buy whatever amount of jewelry, gold coin that they could buy, keep it with them as a security asset, liquidate it at the time of need. So it is essentially not jewelry that they are buying, they are safekeeping the money to be utilized at the point of, so as, like she rightly said, as the banking has expanded, their opportunities to save have increased, and that may have tilted the rural demand to a certain extent.
Okay. And also, is it like in urban areas it's more of investment demand, and in rural areas it's more of jewelry consumption?
There's a mix of both. Okay, we are seeing that even in rural areas, or generally there is more, in the last year and a half or so, there is this increase in investment demand. And also you are having that the denomination that you're buying also goes down. You can even buy now a 0.1 gram coin, or so you have these new kind of investment avenues which are coming. The access has also increased. You can buy through different platforms. You have your digital gold-backed products also which are there. Even physical you can buy through, even through an e-commerce, although it's very nascent there. But yes, there is, this. And when it comes to jewelry also, there are two segments, some who are not that price sensitive. Okay, India generally the mass market is quite price sensitive, but there is this higher income group which may not be that price sensitive, because what we have been hearing based on market feedback is when prices rise, there is this demand for high-end pieces, heavy jewelry also, which is coming from a certain segment. That doesn't offset the overall decline in demand, but even with a 74% price increase last year, the drop in jewelry demand was 25% in volume terms. So, it shows the resilience there.
Okay, so Tarun, I'd like to ask you, with this rising prices, so what are the are people going towards lightweight gold, or, maybe 18 carat or lower carats, and are you focusing more on those kind of gold jewelry?
Of course, that also, not just because of the price has obviously pushed that or accelerated that process, whereby we are having to re-merchandise and look at, instead of 22 carat, maybe 18 carat and 14 carat. In fact, the new government regulations has allowed hallmarking in 9 carat. But you also have to see how our demographics are changing, which are driving that change in our product offering. The share of working women as a consumer and their needs for jewelry has also evolved over the last few years and decades. So you are obviously manufacturing with that perspective in mind, that your audience is changing, their needs for jewelry are changing. It is no longer restricted to larger occasions or weddings only. You would want to focus on more wearable sort of jewelry as a category. And with this whole change or the rise in the price, that change has accelerated. So now we're experimenting with not just the lower carat, we're also using better technology to manufacture, whereby we can reduce the weight of the gold to retain the same look and feel, different alloys, experimenting with 14 carat, 18 carat, and the lower caratage also.
So Jateen, I'll ask the same question again, Kavita, what I'm going to ask him. So now with the rise in gold prices, the wealth of the households has really increased. Many of the households hold most of their investments and savings in gold. And if gold prices have gone doubled or whatever, 150% higher, they have so much more gold. So in rural areas especially, so how do you think they can monetize all this wealth that they have at their disposal? And like we just heard from Aruna Didi, that they're not aware, they're not thought about it. So do you think the government should run some policy, some awareness programs about how they can monetize the gold, maybe raise some money from it, and use it for more productive purposes? I'll come to you also with the same question. Yeah.
See, this is a little bit of a powerful question because I can get hated for this thing. I'll tell you seriously why. Because monetization of gold means that you are taking the actual physical gold from a woman and taking it out from a lockers and putting it away from her.
But
So
I think women don't mind now.
Yeah. But see, this is a theme where emotions are attached. In Indian households, the gold is like an emotional attachment. See, even if we have so much of paper gold with you as an investment point of view, but in India, the physical demand is like it's an emotional attachment. So little bit of detachment is needed by showing them with the awareness. As you said, the awareness has to be there that how they can let their gold work for them. So instead of keeping the gold idle and as a safety net, let the gold work for you. That is the theme that should be concentrated by the government and by the monetization awareness schemes which should be spreaded towards the rural areas, because tons of thousands of gold are lying inside the lockers, especially in the parts of rural where the economy is strengthening, and 60 to 70% of our economical growth is from that part of our India. So definitely this monetization scheme helps them. The awareness needs to be there first and foremost. They have the gold loan monetization where they can liquidate their, not liquidate, but get some loan on their gold which is lying with them. So they are not selling the gold is with them, but they are getting the cash for it, for empowering themselves and the household eventually. See, if the woman is working, it is not her itself, but the whole household is going to earn a lot of knowledge and a lot of power into the economical strength. So that is what should be the focus point, where the woman empowerment should be coming ahead with the mindset that yes, the gold monetization has to be there. Let your gold work for you. Start a business. Ample amount of opportunities are lying. If we go run through the government sides, there are so many schemes right now running for especially the women also, that they can come out and easily avail those things and run a business and entrepreneurship also as well. So these things will not only lead to economical growth, but the fiscal deficit numbers will also start coming lower. That is what the projections will start behaving, because the more we depend on the imports rather than the export, numbers will start increasing, because the more businesses come into the picture, the more exports will happen, and that is what the focus point should be. And yes, as you rightly said, the gold needs to be coming out from the lockers, and it needs to be working as a working capital for the rural household especially. That what I would say.
Okay, Kavita, your thoughts on this? How do you make the gold work and not just lie in lockers?
In fact, it's already working. In case if you go through some of the numbers, which in terms of the bank loan bank credit growth, we have seen that the loans against gold jewelry has more than doubled in the last 1 year. I think we have around the outstanding against that is 3.8 lakh crores, which is close to 130% year-on-year increase. So that is already happening, and if that is leading to used to for productive use, it is credit creation, and it directly flows into economic activity. And this is just for your from the banking channel, that is your banks. You have a similar number which is coming from the non-banking finance corporation, NBFCs also. And in the last few years, like I earlier mentioned, that the spread of banking into various areas, into even rural areas, this has really increased, and now it is the banks which have a larger share in these loans than, they have taken away some of the share which was from the unorganized sector as well as from NBFCs. So the monetization is happening, If you may recall, a few years ago in 2015 or so, we had the gold monetization scheme which the government had come up with. That was different, You take the gold, you melt it, and you will then get an interest on that. So that is a sensitive topic, because there is a lot of emotion attached to it, and so that did not obviously work, and the government just last year even stopped that for the medium term, and it's only some schemes which are working. So One way of looking at monetizing the gold is, to continue with what it is, create more awareness, bring the gold into the formal channels, okay, so that when the bank and NBFCs, these are regulated, your asset is safe. At the same time, you can, get funds for working capital needs or for, whatever your requirements are. And that would help in, overall economic activity, and give the required funds as required. So yes, it's just creating more awareness about that.
Yeah. Tarun, your thoughts on this? How can more awareness be created that they are sitting on so much of wealth and they can put it to productive use?
So that trend we're already witnessing, like I said, that when we are selling new jewelry today, a large portion of what is sitting in the lockers is coming back as recycled gold. So from a jewelry standpoint, that is already being promoted aggressively by the jewelry companies in their marketing campaigns, from the biggest of the chain stores to local jewelers. Everybody is sort of trying to promote that trend. So from a jewelry standpoint, that is already in process, and that I think has penetration in the rural area also. From the monetization standpoint, like both the colleagues here said, that the policies need to be friendly from the woman's perspective, where the emotional angle is taken care of. The gold loans from both from the banks and the NBFCs are on the rise. You're seeing so many of the NBFCs getting sprung up at every corner of the street, which is a clear indication of how the trend is shaping up. Perhaps the panelists will be able to shed more light on it, but from a jewelry perspective, that trend is already here.
Totally agree with you, because nearly 40 to 60% of the jewelry sales are, exchange of old gold. So yeah, that is.
Okay, so jewelry buying, may think twice, but gold as an investment has a long way to go. That's what we're getting from the panel. Gold is going to continue rising. You may want to continue investing in gold. So Jateen, you tell us what is the best way that people can invest in gold? That is it an exchange-traded fund or is it a sovereign gold bond? I think that they've stopped now. It's become too expensive for the government to have the sovereign gold bond. So what other ways can they invest, and what's the minimum that people can put to really invest in gold?
See, as we said earlier, that the portfolio allocation has to be 15 to 20%. See, I'm not a firm believer that only the jewelry part should be included in your portfolio. See, the jewelry part is also an emotional attachment, and it is a safety net as well. But on portfolio terms basis, this jewelry allocation should be separated. That should not be counted in your portfolio. On portfolio terms, either it has to be a paper gold like ETFs or sovereign gold bond. If you are holding, then still keep on holding it. And there are mediums of taking it on smaller denominations in physicals as well. So use those utilize those forms to keep on allocating that part into your portfolios. And yes, the cycle is here to stay. And gold, if it is not in your portfolio, then your portfolio is at a very high risk. So yes, portfolio allocation, gold has to be there.
So what's the minimum that people need to invest if they want to put in ETFs and all?
I think it starts from a basic one share, that is whatever the price is, and you can even take 100 rupees from it. So minimum denomination of 100 rupees also you can invest it.
You'd like to add something?
No, so from jewelry standpoint also, as physical coins, most jewelry companies are also offering gold, for, half a gram of gold is also equally available. So that divisibility is pretty much taken care of.